Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to nectat, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
There are new questions about President Biden and his meetings with his son Hunter.
The New York Post reports these breakfasts, lunches, and other sit-downs between 2008 and 2016 raised questions about whether Hunter Biden was delivering messages from foreign clients to his dad after Hunter's overseas business trips when Joe Biden was vice president. Kentucky Congressman James Comer is the top Republican on the House Oversight Committee.
We know that Hunter Biden is a national security threat, and we fear that the problems and the shady business dealings from Hunter and Jim Biden have compromised this president.
And yet the White House insists President Biden did not discuss Hunter's foreign business dealings with him. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
Opening arguments have been heard in the penalty phase of Nicholas Cruz trial in Broward County, Florida. The prosecutor telling the jury yesterday that Cruz deserves to be executed for shooting 17 people to death at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School on Valentine's Day in 2018. Cruz has already pleaded guilty to the murders. The man blamed for a racially motivated grocery store shooting in Buffalo was in federal court Monday.
Wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles, Peyton Gendron stood silent in federal court in Buffalo, New York, where no cameras were allowed, as his lawyer entered a not guilty plea on the 19-year-old's behalf in the attack at the Tops grocery store in Buffalo in May, and the shooting of 13 people, 11 black, 2 white, 10 people killed, with Gendron facing multiple counts, including domestic terror and hate crimes, though the Justice Department has yet to say whether or not prosecutors will seek the death penalty in this case. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
The federal charges are in addition to the state murder charges. 13 people are reported dead in a prison riot in Ecuador. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Candid, The Point, and the Guam Daily Post are proud to present another Platform 2022 debate. Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and Lieutenant Governor candidate Sabrina Salas Matanani. Phil Leon Guerrero and Montesilva Tyron will present topics and issues of concern to every Guamanian. July 20th at 6 p.m. everywhere. Broadcast, simulcast, and webcast on Facebook, Candid News, and on the air at 93.3 FM and on KGTF. Platform 2022 from Candid, the Guam Daily Post, and 93.3 The Point.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Here we are on a Tuesday afternoon, starting out with the Second Amendment, which is our usual custom here. Moving from there straight into Zemi Ikotny. This used to be a really interesting part of the program back in the day when both our newspapers ran real editorials. It's not so interesting anymore. The Post gave up on writing editorials. They're too busy campaigning against Michael San Nicolas, I guess. And the Daily News puts stuff in the news hole on their editorial page where editorials go, but they seldom actually put a real editorial in there. Today is no different. Our view, take advantage of Guam DOE's initial teacher certification assistance program. Our island's public education system has long struggled with recruiting fully certified teachers to keep classrooms running and students moving forward. They were so desperate 59 years ago, Jose, they hired me. And they wanted me so bad that they flew me out here. Yeah. Our smaller jurisdiction and financial realities make it more difficult to match teacher salaries offered in the states. But as local leaders work to keep our teachers adequately compensated, work is being done within the Department of Education to get more teachers certified. The Education Agency announced its Division of Curriculum Instruction has opened the application period for the initial Teacher Certification Assistance Program. This is important news as we head into the upcoming school year. We've all read, watched, and listened to stories about residents leaving Guam for opportunities elsewhere. It makes it even more important for our education officials to do what they can to support the educators who stay in our public school classrooms. There are a number of educators who are filling classroom positions as limited-term teachers. These are the teachers who keep our students learning, although they have not yet to obtain full certification. Educating young minds and managing the dynamics of a classroom is no easy feat. And we recommend those who step up to the plate, we commend those who step up to the plate to teach Guam students. We applaud Guam DOE and the Division of Curriculum Instruction for providing the opportunity for teachers to get properly certified. The process for teacher certification can be cumbersome for those who hold full-time jobs, and the test for certification is no walk down easy street. The initial Teacher Certification Assistance Program is a great way to guide and encourage our teachers to take the steps necessary to become full-fledged certified educators. We urge all those who keep Guam students moving forward to take advantage. Teacher certification is a bridge to job permanence, higher salaries, and confident certified teachers who are the conduits of education for thousands of students. The application period for the initial Teacher Certification Assistance Program is open through September 16. And then there's a website here where you can apply, etc. You can email Michelle Camacho, the project leader, and her email is in the story also, or in the story. Yeah, it's a story. It's a news article. They just need to put something in the editorial page, so they figured we'll just stick this in there. No harm, no foul, right? Okay, for the calendar for today, for the card for today, I've got the Post versus Michael San Nicolas. I've got Ken Leon Guerrero versus Vince Camacho. I've got Sauder versus Liberation Day. Slutikov versus the Holocaust, which I started yesterday but couldn't finish. Michael San Nicolas versus Prophets, and so on down the line. Okay, as far as Paul Zerzan is concerned, I told you yesterday that his case was coming up before the Civil Service Commission. I will follow that and keep you up to speed on that one. And let's see here. We've got the 36-34 portion of the agenda, of course. And you can always count on the hospital to not do it right. Once again, item 3, new old business, no indication of what the old business is. So they're telling you anything they've talked about before could come on the agenda, and they may take action on it, but it'll be void because they violated the open government law. Chamorro Land Trust Commission, now it's not the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, it's the Chamorro Land Trust Commission board meeting. So apparently there's a Chamorro Land Trust Commission, and then there's also a Chamorro Land Trust Commission board. That sounds like an awful lot of people to me. Why don't they just have a commission and let it go at that?
Unless they're describing the meeting.
Board, B-O-R-E-D, board. And they seem to keep bringing the same stuff back. A 1995 application status is old business. I could tell you what the status of the 1995 applications is. It's nothing. It's zero. Because the commission and your government settled and left you out. New business, CLTC beneficiary process. 2, affidavit and checklist for approval of the eligible beneficiary process. So if we're going to just do it on the basis of affidavits, yeah, you know, that field down there, you know, next where the dead dog on the corner with the old junk car and the refrigerator. Yeah, I used to farm out there. I raised bitter melon. Yeah, can you sign? Yeah, okay. So if that's the way it's going to go, there's a rule here, Jose. Here's the rule. First liar doesn't have a chance. I'm sorry. Unless you're the first lawyer, you don't have a chance. They're going to talk about delegating responsibility to the administrative director. I thought they would have learned their lesson on that with Jack Haddock. And then unauthorized use of lot 7164 Gigo. I wonder what they're using that lot for. Are they actually going to enforce some of the Chamorro Land Trust rules? Lorette Guerrero and Eddie Concepcion Muña have constituent matters. And it looks like a pretty interesting meeting, but I don't think the media covers the Chamorro Land Trust anymore. Pity. Okay, next item on the card is the Post versus Michael San Nicolas. And you'll remember that yesterday I showed you what the front page of the Post looked like. Yeah, he did not help his case. So they really did a hatchet job on Michael San Nicolas yesterday. No new hatchet job today, although they said this was a 2-part series.
I was looking.
Yeah, maybe they're going to hold the second part of the series, hold the second part of the series up until the day before election. Timing is everything in politics, right? And next I've got Ken Leon Guerrero versus Vince Camacho. Leon Guerrero, legality of voter initiatives for the courts, .gec. Senatorial candidate Joaquin Ken Leon Guerrero. Do you ken Leon Guerrero?
Yes, I can.
You know, the word ken, as I understand it, for a Scot means no.
Oh.
Yeah, this the old song, do you ken John Peel? Do you know John Peel? Yeah. So do you ken Leon Guerrero? Yeah, I know Ken. Yeah. Senatorial candidate Ken Leon Guerrero has responded to Election Commission Executive Director Maria Pangilinan, who wrote to him concerning voter initiatives he's working on to put 2022 election ballots. The letter dated July 5 outlines the 6 voter initiatives filed by Leon Guerrero. GEC stated that Leon Guerrero's initiatives 2 and 4 are contrary to the Organic Act. Initiative 2 proposes a part-time legislature, and 4 proposes the Corrupt Practices Act, which seeks to allow taxpayers to sue the government and elected or appointed officials in both their professional and personal capacities if they violate laws or regulations according to post files. Guam's Organic Act is the federal law that acts in place of a constitution for the island. Pangilinan, regarding voter initiative number 2, wrote, "The Organic Act vests the legislature with the discretion to determine the length of each regular session." I have never seen that in the Organic Act. I haven't looked lately, but I've never seen it.
Maybe Talena will send you a copy.
Yeah, they tell you when the legislature is supposed to start, but even the legislature can change that by law. If your proposed measure were enacted, it would divest the legislature with this discretion, which would be contrary to the Organic Act. Well, our initiative law says that initiative can't be repealed for 2 years. I don't think that would stand. The initiative process stands in place of an enacted law by the legislature. And the rule is that the legislature can change the law whenever it wants. And the example I've used is the legislature could pass a law that says that no session of this legislature shall start in December of any given year. And they could call themselves into session on the first of December and pass a law that says that there shall always be legislative sessions in December, and it would work. Now, some people trying to sound wise say one legislature can't bind another. The fact is, one legislature can't even bind itself. Whatever the legislature can do, it can undo. So I just don't see that argument there. Leon Guerrero, in his response, stressed that the initiative process is the tool provided to citizens that allows non-senators to create law. The Organic Act, according to Leon Guerrero, does not specify that only elected representatives may pass a law. In fact, the part of the legislature, as it were, the Organic Act dealing with the legislature, was enacted before the provision dealing with initiative, referendum, and recall. Now, the general rule of construction is if there is a conflict between laws, the latter, and there are lots of rules, but the easiest one to remember is that the latter in time controls. If this initiative, if passed, shall have the same force as if passed by the elected members of the legislature, etc. Regarding voter initiative number 4, the Corrupt Practices Act, Leon Guerrero said the initiative allows citizens to hold elected and appointed officials, government employees, and members of boards and commissions accountable for violations of law, rule, regulations, and standard operating procedures, not the government of Guam. Well, close, but no cigar. When you hold a government official liable for anything, you, in effect, are holding the government of Guam liable. If you are attempting to hold a private citizen liable, no, we've done that. We know that the director of land management can be held liable up to $1,000 for failure to comply with the Sunshine Law. No sovereign immunity dimension there. Ken goes on to say, I disagree with the GEC assertion that voter initiative 2 and 4 are contrary to the Organic Act. It's not for the GEC to determine if an initiative is legal or not. That's the jurisdiction of the courts. And I think he's got a good point there, because there's no ripeness. If someone is putting, if in Ken's case, his initiative hasn't even gone through the regulatory process. It may not ever get through the regulatory process. Maybe he doesn't have enough signatures. But if he gets through the regulatory process, it puts it on the ballot. Until it passes, it's not ripe. There's no question for anybody to decide there. Also, I've read the statute of the Election Commission, and certainly the counsel for the Election Commission doesn't have the ability to determine what can and can't go on an initiative.
That was the big thing hanging over. I'm going, what's the process of putting an initiative on the ballot, and where does judging the initiative come into play?
Yeah, judging, not the procedures involved.
Not the procedure,
but the substance.
The substance.
Yeah. So at most, I think Vince Camacho could write a memorandum to the commission saying, here's my view of the law that you might want to know about. And if he did such a thing, where in the hell is it? Lawyers just don't say, no, you can't do that without some documentation that anybody like me can look at and say, yeah, that's correct or that's not correct. So this seems like the usurpation of an awful lot of power by what I almost always refer to as a faceless bureaucrat, not elected by anybody, never go up for re-election, just a behind-the-scenes guy over there behind the curtain twisting the knobs and pulling the strings, and you see this image on the screen. Number 2 is illegal. And then Ken says, hey, wait a minute, I don't think you're right about that. And then it says, you dare question the great Camacho? That's kind of what it reminds me of. For initiative number 1, GEC said if enacted, candidates that are members of the recognized body would still be subject to a primary election vote requirement. GEC requested Leon Guerrero revise his submission and identify his proposal does not discriminate against candidates from recognized parties. So, number 1, his initiative, now he's done 6. And, rule number 1, if you want to convince the public to do something, keep it, the KISS principle applies. Keep it simple and stupid. Take the one that you think that has the best chance and put it forward. Otherwise, people are going to say, yeah, I know he's doing something, but I don't remember what it is. And if you don't remember it, it's not going to have much force.
Or at least give them snazzy names.
Exactly. So his number 1, as I remember it, he wants to say that independent candidates can go straight to the general. If you are a party candidate, you must go through the primary election. If that were the case, I think there may be a California Democrat Party versus Jones dimension here, other than the one that's mentioned. California Democrat Party versus Jones has certain rules about partisan primaries that rely on the freedom of association part of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. So if anybody can go straight to the general election without going through a party primary, there'll be no party primary because no one will do it. So we'll have a completely nonpartisan election. Because if you associate with a party, then you've got to meet this higher threshold. You've got to get elected twice in order to take office. Equal protection, the test for equal protection in something like this is probably rational state basis. So what's the rational state basis for allowing independents to go straight to the general and everybody else to go through a partisan primary? Saves money? Doesn't save much money if you're going to have a primary. I don't know. I suppose if I thought about it long enough, I could think of a rational state basis, and that's all you need to do. For a rational state basis, you don't need to be able to prove that the members of the legislature were thinking in terms of that rational state basis. All you have to be able to do is hypothetically state what could be a rational reason for the government to do what it wants to do. And there may be one, but it doesn't pop into my brain instantaneously like so many good ideas do.
Where is the law? The law that determines how many candidates from a party can go on a general ballot is in the Organic Act?
No, it's a statute.
It's a statute.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is tough because independent isn't a party, so there is no organization. So they can't have a primary.
Well, there is a provision for candidates who don't run in a primary, who don't belong to parties. They have to go through the primary, and they have to get, there's a threshold they have to meet. It's either a number or a percentage of the votes cast in order to advance to the general. So as a practical matter, what this means is you cannot get on the general election ballot as an independent, because anyone who votes for you as an independent cannot vote for anybody else in that whole primary. So do you want Smucker Huckowitz to be on the general election ballot bad enough that you're not going to vote for senators, attorneys general, governors? No, it just isn't going to happen. Now, I know Ken has seen legislation that would get around this without just doing away with the primary requirement for independents to advance to the general. But, I'm looking at this primarily from the standpoint of what the Election Commission can and can't do. But I'll deviate from that for a moment and say that I don't think that would be a good idea. If it would pass legal muster, I don't think it would be a good idea for anyone to go out and gather 250 signatures and thereby appear on the general election ballot. One of our frequent callers here, Dr. Ron McNinch, but he's a doctor, but as his daughter says, he's not the kind of doctor that can help people.
Is he the kind of doctor that could identify which people are food items?
I don't know if he could or not. But anyhow, he has hypothesized the existence of vanity candidates. People that want to get their name on the ballot and see their name in the paper, knowing they don't have any chance at all to get elected, but they're vain and they just like the exposure. They like the popularity that comes with it. They like to have people talking about them. Well, there'd be no bar to that if there were no primary election. You could conceivably have 200 people on the ballot for a general election. Second, primaries provide a salutary function to the electoral process, because as a general principle, people tend to group together with people with similar political ideas in parties. We know that the Democrats are the pro-abortion party, the Republicans are the anti-abortion party. There are a couple Democrats that haven't gotten the word, but I suspect that they're ostracized by their Democratic brethren. So for me, that's enough. If you're on the Democratic side, you're pro-abortion, I'm not going to vote for you. And I see this as helpful because it tends to sort things out ideologically. Now, we're a small community. The numbers are small. We don't have the power of large numbers here. So once again, people attempt to sound knowledgeable by saying, on Guam, it's not like the States. The parties don't mean anything. It's all about families and personalities. Not so. Not so. Back in the days of blackjack, I explained that the other day, back before 1968, when we had 21 on a side in the primary election, at the top of the ballot, there was a square, a much larger square. And if you marked that square, you cast your ballot for all 21 in that column. It was called a blackjack, right? And there wasn't a whole lot of discernment. You were either were or weren't. The Democrat Party was so much stronger than the Territorial Party. And finally, it put the Territorial Party out of business. So, but nowadays, party does matter. It's at least a determining factor, if not. And we've heard our Carl talk in terms of he'd always voted solid Republican. There are people like that that'll vote straight party down the line. I have mentioned if we don't want to have a primary the way we do it, what we could do is change the law so that on the general election ballot, you don't identify candidates by party. Then you could have a primary, and the top 30 people who made it through the primary advanced to the general, because it wouldn't be by party. It would be I guess that's a blanket primary. I can't quite remember the nomenclature. But just to say independents go straight to the general, you're not going to get Tall Tales endorsement on that one, Ken. All right, let's take a short break, and let's see who I got here in the green room.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Get ready to save up and chow down with Pacific Points. Now you can redeem Pacific Points for UnoGo wallet credits and enjoy huge savings on food delivery. Order from over 80 restaurants and have it delivered straight to your door. Continue earning points when you fuel up at Shell, shop at Foodies, purchase ITNE prepaid load, and pay your monthly ITNE bill. Then get ready to claim your rewards. Learn more at PacificPoints.com. Pacific Points. Do more, get more.
Now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, going on. GEC's comments on initiative. And by the way, I've got another Joe here in the green room. I'll get to another Joe as soon as I finish with this card item. So hang on, another Joe. GEC's comments on Initiative 3, which proposes to increase the number of senators from 15 to 21, reminded Leon Guerrero that voters passed a law to reduce the number to 15 in 1996. The people changed the number of legislators once. Now the people have sufficient time to view the outcome of that change. He suggests the people may decide that a smaller legislature is the best interest of citizens and voters. According to Leon Guerrero, the initiative seeks to reverse the 1996 action. Once again, commenting on substance, not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. I'm going to be brutally frank here. Right now, we can't even find 21 good senators. I'm sorry, we can't even find 15 good senators. And you want to go out and beat the bushes and find 6 more? Not a good idea at all. If I had my way, I would reduce it to 11. Because the smaller number of senators there are, the harder it is to hide. To do silly things like when the votes are called to pass, you know, to have an excused absence when a critical vote comes up. And then my joke is that, you know, when the roll is called, you can vote yay, you can vote nay, you can pass, or you can make a head call. And that's what happens. So it's just too easy to hide amongst the other senators. So you really never are able to A senator is never really on the spot as to what he's doing and what he's not doing. I would go with 11. And if I could, I'd go with 11 and 2 30-day sessions a year, and that would be it. Going on here. Voter initiative number 5 regarding an elected prosecutor. GEC noted local law prescribes an attorney general serves as public prosecutor. But Leon Guerrero, defending the initiative, cited a feeling in the community that the elected attorney general has failed. If you're talking about this one, you're damn sure right about that. He has failed. And, of course, it's not what Levin has done. It's what Levin hasn't done. So the only attorney general that we've had since we've been electing them that really started out with the aggressive idea that I'm going to prosecute the guilty and protect the innocent was Doug Moylan. Now, Doug had a style that didn't sit very well with the electorate. He wasn't reelected. He tried again. I think he was still haunted by that first attempted reelection. He's running again this time. He's an older and wiser Doug Moylan, but he still has what I would call the fire in his belly. Doug Moylan is the kind of guy that would walk around town with a cap with a brim down over his eye, pulled down over his eyes, looking for people that are breaking the law. The current attorney general, I don't think he ever goes downtown. I don't know where he hangs out, but he seems to have only vague awareness of what's going on in the island where he is the attorney general. I'm not ready to give up on an elected attorney general yet, but another example, Elizabeth Barrett Anderson, who had been an appointed attorney general, then was the elected attorney general. We had a situation where the governor handed out retroactive salary increases to people in his administration. That's against the law. There was a clamor. They got to pay it back. They got to be prosecuted. Elizabeth Barrett Anderson says, well, yeah, it's against the law, but I can't prosecute because I wrote an opinion advising the governor that it was against the law. Parenthesis, instead of just prosecuting, close parenthesis. Therefore, I can't prosecute. We need a special prosecutor. I'm not going to go into the details, but that was undertaken. It was fumbled so badly that a special prosecutor was never hired, and I suspect that was fine with the elected attorney general who was not that anxious. You know, there's this trait that you find in public officials. You know, I always wonder why some people want to be public officials when they hate to make a decision. Why do you want to be a decision maker if you hate to make decisions? And especially, why do you want to be a decision maker when you know that some of the decisions you make will make some people angry? That's the nature of being a decision maker. And that seemed to be the governing principle for everybody after Doug Moylan. Well, I could do, but I'm not going to do it.
Let's let the people decide.
Yeah.
Even though they already elected me.
Exactly. Yeah. Ken wants an elected prosecutor. I think that's a good idea. You know, and the standard American procedure is that most prosecution is done at the county level. So at the county level, you have an elected official known as the district attorney. In Illinois, that person is called the state's attorney. Although it's a county election, he prosecutes crimes on behalf of the state. And then you have a state attorney general who handles other things, has a relationship usually with the district attorneys. If necessary, can send somebody in to prosecute in the place of a district attorney, handles interstate relationships, advises the governor, etc. And of course, we're too small to have the district attorney model, but there's no reason that we can't have an elected attorney general and an elected prosecutor. In fact, if we had an elected prosecutor, it might tend to keep the elected attorney general on his toes, saying, wow, I can't call off a prosecution on myself like I used to be able to anymore. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Then finally, Voter Initiative 6 proposes an empowered public auditor. GEC noted it would impact current law as well, given it authorizes the elected auditor to prosecute procurement violations. So if the GEC says it impacts current law, give somebody over there a trophy, because that person's a genius. That's the reason we do initiatives. If it doesn't impact current law, why would we bother?
If it were up to the GEC, they do away with the legislators.
Yeah.
They affect law too much.
GEC requested you prepare a revised submission for number 6, wherein you provide information how the proposal would impact current Guam law, Pangilinan wrote. Leon Guerrero once again stumped for his draft laws to Election Commission, including his proposed budgetary set-aside for the OPA. All too often, information requests by the auditor are ignored by public officials to the point the office is not able to perform its function as the auditing authority. Yeah, well, once again, on the substance, no, you can't have more than one prosecutor in the government. That's not going to work. It has to be the Attorney General, and I know there are problems with that. If anybody climbed on it, it was me with this silly complaint for a declaratory judgment instead of prosecuting based on the procurement of the 19th floor. Yeah, that BJ laid it out so clearly, and the Attorney General ignored it. So my own solution in the note that I wrote on the Sunday Forum was that there should be a dedicated attorney inside the office of the public auditor, with the provision that the Attorney General designates him as a special assistant Attorney General if litigation is necessary. Now, I know that guy over there saying, well, yeah, but the Attorney General just ain't going to do it. Well, he's going to take a hell of a beating in the press then when BJ sends his letter saying, here's what I've got. Here's what I want to do. Please designate Smucker Huckowitz a special assistant attorney general. And Levin sits on it for 2 weeks and writes back and says, no, it wouldn't work very well. So that's my kind of workup on Ken. The initial things that catch my eye here, without going into the substance of any of Ken's initiatives, which I think have slight chance of passing, to be very candid with you. Ken has kind of disabled himself for being the champion of his own initiatives because he's running as a candidate. The proponent of an initiative needs to take the position these wastrels in the legislature cannot ever be depended upon to do the right thing. Therefore, we, the people, have to take over and do what needs to be done. Oh, and by the way, I want to be one of those wastrels myself, so please vote for me. There's that, and then 6 is way too many. 1 would be more than enough. Pick the one you think is the strongest, go with it, put on an extensive campaign. Try to cross the legal bridges before you have to jump off them. Okay, so much for that. I've still got another Joe on the line, and I got another break coming up. Another Joe, I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to come right to you.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Hafa Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
So, another Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, that's the way you like to start out your conversations. Uncle Bob, can you hear me? So what do you want to tell me, another Joe?
Okay, so regarding the stage right here a little bit. The good professor saying that people just have some sort of vanity, wanting to. What if they're thinking, "Wow, I only get to participate in my government once every 2 years, and I really want to be part of the conversation of the decision-making process regarding all these different issues." And if they're going to vote on the issues, what better way than to be well informed of the issues than to participate in the decision-making process, and which leads into an election year, right? The election year, they bring up these issues more often. So I don't know that it's always one type of cookie cutter type, you just vain type of person. I think people should participate in their government. What do you think, Bob? You think I'm off?
I haven't entered my appearance as defense counsel for Ron McNench, and I probably won't. But what he said is there are vanity candidates. There are people like, as you describe, people that have very deep interest, have studied up, understand the issues, are willing to go out and work hard and get elected because they want to be a part of the government. But McNench's point is there are people that don't do that. They just fill out the papers, turn the papers in, because they want to see their picture in the paper, their name in the paper. They want people to talk about them, saying, "Hey, did you hear about Herman Smucker-Hugowitz? He's running for senator." "Oh, Herman? Wow." And Herman has no idea in the world that he's going to get elected. He's just a vanity candidate. And the reason that I brought that up is that if you don't have some sorting mechanism at the primary level, you're really opening it up to vanity candidates. What are you going to be doing this fall, Herman? The usual pig hunting and little fishing. I'm going to turn my papers in, get my name on the ballot for senator. That should be pretty interesting to talk with the guys down at McDonald's over coffee. That's what McNench is talking about.
Mm-hmm. And regarding the part-time legislature, it sounds interesting, Bob. You're talking about 30 days, was it twice, 2 months a year?
That's right.
Session?
Uh-huh.
Would they be part-time during those 2 months? Or
they would. No, I drafted a bill. It's in the 28th Guam legislature. It's Bill 290. And what it provides for is 2 30-day sessions, and that a senator is paid a stipend of $50 a day that he's actually in attendance, as shown in the Journal of the Election of the legislature, and that's it.
And that would open up the field to more participation in our government by the people, because it would. It's just a part-time position. So what's preventing anyone from taking interest in their government?
My analysis is that a lot of folks who are in businesses, et cetera, would say to themselves, 30 days would be tough, but I can go into panic overdrive for 30 days. I can keep my business running and I can still do a good job as senator. But I'm not going to give up my business, my career, and center my whole life on sitting down there for 2 years. So I'm never going to run for the legislature the way it is now. But if it were part-time, yeah, I'd give it a shot. And I think we would increase the talent pool dramatically, because there are a lot of people that won't make that sacrifice, that want to give up everything just to go down to the legislature, another Joe.
And you would have all types of people, you know, not any particular requirements or you know, check this box off, check that box off. Oh, you don't have a doctorate degree. Oh, sorry, that sort of thing. You know, anyone could take an interest. Anyway, you made a pretty good case for increasingly, it seems like, for part-time legislature. Uncle Bob, I'll just keep listening. Bill 290, right?
Bill 290, 28th Guam legislature, another Joe.
Okay, Uncle Bob, keep listening. Take care.
So long. Now, my analysis is that the public really wants a part-time legislature. But, of course, the roadblock is that nobody in the legislature now wants a part-time legislature.
I think they're okay with the part-time legislature, just not the part-time legislature pay.
Exactly, yeah. Well, in a sense, we have a part-time legislature because an awful lot of them are...
They've done it.
Yeah. And their attendance is irregular. And, of course, they would tell you that when they go to 3 deads on the same day, it's all in the line of work because I'm working with my constituents, right? But it's if we're looking for a soft touch, if you can make it, it's $55,306 a year. You're not accountable to anybody. You don't sign in. You don't sign out. There's no time clock. If you got elected and you wanted to stay home and watch TV for 2 years, nothing would happen to you. You'd still get your check every 2 weeks. You wouldn't even need to pick it up. You do a direct deposit. There's that. There's the perks that come with it. If you serve 1 term, you are entitled to a state funeral when you die. The bill that I drafted does away with that. We don't need a department of pomp and circumstance in our government. If we wanted something like that, I might go as far as a sitting governor, a sitting justice, and that's about it. But not sitting. We go all the way down to assistant commissioners from the old days. And my idea is that probably the direct labor cost of putting one of those on is between $5,000 and $10,000 because everybody in the legislature got to come over there and pitch in the state funeral. So there's that. You get a special license plate if you want to, if you're a senator. No more leave, no more sick leave. The pay and the societal recognition that you get. If you are a senator, you can go to almost any social function on the island, show up 15 minutes after it starts, and depend on the master of ceremonies standing up and saying, "Oh, and now we want to take this occasion to welcome into our midst Senator Timeless, who doesn't know how to tell time and always shows up late." But, of course, how do you make a grand entrance if you're on time? All of these perks that come with it, you know. So nobody in the legislature is going to vote for a part-time legislature. Now, I have counseled people who want to be in the legislature. If you want to go, you know, make that your rallying point. Vote if you want a part-time legislature. Vote for me because that's the reason I'm running. I will back it to the hilt. I will do the best that I can to make it happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm a one-termer. If it does happen, then I'll run for re-election. Because my idea of running is to work myself out of that part-time legislature. So it's very difficult to get people who are invested in the system, many of whom, if not most, are part of the government party. The 300 or 400 people that cycle around between the legislature, the administration, senator, etc. And we had a situation one time. Frank Uggan dropped out to run for lieutenant governor. When he came back, Adolfo Palacios hired him. Adolfo Palacios failed for re-election the next time. Frank Uggan was hired. Guess who Frank Uggan hired?
Mr. Senator Palacios.
Adolfo Palacios. It was called the Adolfo Palacios two-step. So that's the kind of shenanigans you're dealing with, you know? Senators are able to accumulate. If you have a budget in your first term and you don't spend it all, you can accumulate it and take it to the next legislature with you. Now, senators routinely overspend their budgets and they're in a hole, and it's very bad. It's very embarrassing. This puts the senator with the surplus in the situation of saying, oh, yeah, I can transfer some of my budget to you. Any quid pro quo involved there? I don't know.
Well, I'll say yes.
It's not a good system, and we could do so much better with a part-time legislature than what we've got now. Okay, so much for that.
I would include, someone talked about a central office for a legislature, so we don't have this perpetual employee in the Senate offices going from one senator to another type. It just seems kind of, we're getting the same people. It doesn't matter who's in the front.
Exactly. And, you know, I give tips to people who want to run. You know, I try to guard them from going to the 1972 playbook. First thing you do, you sit down and write one page of why you want to be a senator and what you're going to do once you be a senator. You develop your message, etc. And if you're successful, don't hire anybody who has worked for the legislature before, especially anyone who's worked for a senator before. Because the ones that work for senators go from Democrat to Republican to Democrat. And the key word here is picked up. So I want to be sure that if my senator doesn't get reelected, that another senator will see that I'm picked up. Not a good system. All right, let's break for the big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Another investigation of the Uvalde shooting response. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The Texas Department of Public Safety says it has now begun an internal investigation into the police response to the shooting at a Uvalde, Texas elementary school in May that left 19 students and 2 teachers dead. It comes one day after the release of a damning report from state lawmakers that revealed failures at all levels of law enforcement and what it called egregiously poor decision-making. Meanwhile, in Florida, the task of deciding life or death for a school shooter has begun.
Jurors in Fort Lauderdale spent Monday hearing how Nicholas Cruz stormed Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High in Parkland, Florida, killing 14 students and 3 adults.
Cold, calculated, manipulative, and deadly.
Prosecutor Michael Satz also played video for the jurors as recorded by victims. This jury is expected to endure months of evidence presentation before deciding if Cruz, who's already pleaded guilty, should be sentenced to die.
Fox's Eben Brown. We now know the name of the man who intervened to stop a deadly mall shooting Sunday in suburban Indianapolis.
The Good Samaritan. Once again, he has authorized us to release his name. He is requesting you give him time to process and grieve himself before reaching out to him. His name is Elijah Dickin.
Greenwood, Indiana's police chief James Eisen says Dickin was proficient in taking out the suspect who shot and killed 3 people at the mall, apparently at random. It's another primary Tuesday, this time in Maryland, where voters will choose their party's candidates to run for governor and several legislative seats. Republican Governor Larry Hogan is term limited and cannot seek another term. America is listening to Fox News.
First, I want to thank you all for being with us today. Josh and I wouldn't be here without your friendship and your support. Especially the campaign supporters in every village throughout the island who have joined in our effort to keep Guam moving forward.
Our leadership has seen our people through the most frightening pandemic that our generation has ever seen, and it is about to see the most vibrant comeback of an economy in the most developed island here in the Western Pacific.
With your help and your vote, we will move forward as one people, and Josh and I will always be there for every single person and family on Guam.
And I approve this message.
Amid heightened security concerns in the Mideast, Russia's President Vladimir Putin visiting Iran today. The trilateral meeting with Iranian President Raisi and Turkey's President Erdogan. With a Fox News poll finding 84% of those asked say the economy is either fair or poor, the White House pointing to what it says is good news at the gas pump.
The average price of gas has fallen daily for the past 35 days, down about 50 cents a gallon over that time period.
I think what's happening here is a president who is working tirelessly to address the largest constraint, probably the toughest constraint facing American households right now.
White House economic advisor Jared Bernstein says part of the gas price decline can be attributed to $1 million a day release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and reduced regulations on ethanol blended gasoline. Still, energy experts warn oil supplies are still tight, and that could force prices back up. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Court in Delaware today holds a hearing remotely on Twitter's request for an expedited trial to try and force Elon Musk to follow through on his now canceled bid to buy the company. Washington Nationals outfielder Juan Soto is baseball's new home run derby champ.
The 23-year-old Soto became the second youngest winner of the contest. After ousting 42-year-old Cardinals first baseman Albert Pujols in the semifinals, Soto got by Seattle's Julio Rodriguez 19-18 for the title.
Feels tiring, first of all, but it feels amazing, you know, just the hard work I put in and everything. He just felt amazing.
It's courtesy ESPN. Soto ended the night with 53 homers. Rodriguez belted 81 in 3 rounds, but fell 1 short in the final. New York Mets slugger Pete Alonso was denied in his quest for a 3rd straight championship. He lost to Rodriguez 31-24 in the semifinals. Bob Mortale, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, so here we are back on Tall Tales after that big halftime show. Next item on the card is Laura Souter versus Liberation Day. Some things you can really depend upon. I can almost see Michael Bavacqua's column before it appears in the paper. And the G word is key here. G standing for grievance politics. No matter what, we've got to do some grievance politics here, because in order for Guam to separate from the United States and be independent of the United States, people have to understand what a really horrible situation we have right now, being a territory of the United States. And the way that you do that is you keep beating that same drum over and over again. You engage in the same tactics as the critical race theory folks are. You have to go back and rewrite history, debunk your historical predecessors, your founding fathers, make sure that everyone understands that whatever happens is always must be seen through the eyes of race, and that the only solution is a complete change. Now, for the critical race theory folks, that complete change is Marxism. That's what they're after. And it may very well be with some of the separatists. I have hypothesized the existence of the People's Independent Democratic Republic of Guahan, right? A Marxist island, if certain people were able to take control of it. So part of it is that you really have to beat up on traditions and things that people thought they knew. You know, ever since I lived here, Liberation Day has been the big holiday of the year. The parade, the float, the Queen, the carnival. There was a time when the carnival was great before so many folks could go to Disneyland. And it was, in the beginning, it was always about the Marines and soldiers that came and took the island away from the Japanese and gave it back to the people. It's not what it's about anymore. The Marines and soldiers, in the way a lot of people tell the story, are a footnote. It's about the heroism of the Chamorro people and their chroniclers. Now, here we are with one of the chroniclers. Now, Madison Scott writes this for the Daily News. I don't know who Madison Scott is, but anybody who's named after Madison, Wisconsin, has got to be pretty hard left.
Well, here's something interesting. Where was it that James Madison was born?
Probably Virginia.
Virginia, probably, yeah. The James Madison, this kind of has the same thing to do with this article, just to paint a scenario. The James Madison Museum right now is under attack by wokeism. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Oh, yeah.
It's taken over, and this is not to say that we can't talk about slavery or what happened during those years, but the museum is the James Madison Museum. And what they're doing to it now is trying to balance a talk between, like you said, grievance politics, to try to put some sort of equity or something that has nothing to do with James Madison in the museum, just to be woke. And this story reminds me of that.
And they're doing the same thing at the Hermitage. And they're debunking these guys. These guys weren't so great, these white slaveholders. But see, this is part of it. You have to destroy a people's history if you want to really control their present and their future. So you guys all are also proud of your founding fathers, these white slaveholders. They were this, they were that. They weren't even very smart. You got to forget about that. It's like the article I had here the other day where the university professor said the Constitution's the problem. Yeah. So it's kind of a revisionist history.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so here's how I'll just pull some parts of this article out and criticize the hell out of them. It goes like this. Madison Scott writes it. It's like the elephant in the room. We can all play around and pretend it doesn't exist, but it's right there, occupying the most space. Laura Marie Torres Souter, Sina, scholar, longtime advocate for Chamorro language and culture. When did Laura Souter get to be a scholar? You know, being a scholar means that more than you went to college. Like being a historian means more than that you read history books. Yeah, Sina, I'll give her that, although she's not that old either. Anyhow, she puts words to a feeling shared by many, though perhaps not often expressed. For all it represents and acknowledges, Liberation Day celebrations leave out a pervasive and ongoing sting. The liberation is incomplete. It has to be reframed. This is Sina, scholar and longtime advocate for Chamorro language and culture, Laura Souders quote. It has to be reframed. The responsible thing to do as people who are committed to nation building. I am not conditioned to nation building. Are you, Jose?
I don't think so.
No,
I know so. I'm not.
Yeah, I already live in a nation. It was built in 1776.
I would even argue that neither is she.
Yeah, Laura Soder.
What evidence?
Yeah. The responsible thing to do is people are committed to nation building as people are committed to at least exercising cultural sovereignty. Cultural sovereignty. Now, I wonder what that is. If we're not able to exercise economic and political sovereignty, now that can only come from one place, Jose: independence, political sovereignty. We have a responsibility to consciously and deliberately clearly define what we're celebrating, Sauter said. Oh, I'm celebrating, although I'm commemorating, not celebrating, the fact that 1,528 Marines got killed, taking this island away from the Japanese. As villages throughout the island decorate floats and families prepare to camp out along the parade route, the people of Guam are welcoming back hallmarks of pre-pandemic life. In the Liberation Parade and multi-festival at Chamorro Village, these celebrations are woven into the fabric of Guam's contemporary history. But for Sauder and others, they fall short of acknowledging the full story, leaving them to wrestle with difficult tensions and questions with limited public space to do so. She writes a column every week for the Post. Who is Liberation Day for? Are hearts and minds focused on the right people and events? Do our actions on the day truly honor them? Is the name itself appropriate? Okay, then there's some coverage of a guy named Willie Flores who has to do with a monument. And then, let's see here. Now we have another star in the firmament here. Annie Faye Camacho, who is the co-chair of Independent Guahan Media and Solidarity Committee. Camacho is currently pursuing her master's in psychology and Micronesian studies at the University of Guam. Sauder's aim is to focus the parade and Liberation Day discussions on the Chamorro people surviving, noting that the parade transitioning from military to local leadership over time has been a positive change. I don't know when it was ever under military leadership. Maybe before 1950. I don't know. She is also in favor of changing the name. Typical, right? Yeah. Preferring Linatla, or life, in Chamorro over the sometimes offered Reoccupation Day, the occupied island of Guam. in an effort to both respect the experience of those who were liberated and to acknowledge the reality that liberation is unfinished. So the message is all the same. The liberation has got to amount to only one thing, an independent Guam. But you know, you're Mrs. Revisionist, or you're not coming out and saying that. You're not coming out and saying Guam should be an independent island. It should be independent of the United States and free of United States sovereignty. That's what she's not doing that. She wants to, go in this revisionist approach, attacking the old institutions, renaming things, redefining ideas, etc. They sometimes offered Reoccupation Day in an effort to both respect the experience of those who were liberated and to acknowledge the reality that liberation is unfinished. I would rather use a cultural term than a political term, because celebration and reoccupation are as dissonant as independence, which is what she wants. Why would we celebrate reoccupation? Boy, oh boy, I know a lot of people, a lot of them are dead now, who could have answered that one in a heartbeat. So I would lean on the side of culturally relevant term, a positive term, but the important thing is to change the name so our revisionist history has legs. Souder also said individuals must work to liberate themselves from their colonial mindsets so that words like independence don't feel foreign or incendiary. Yeah.
Wait, whose fault is that?
Annie Faye Camacho, co-chair of Independent Guahan Media and Solidarity Committee, shares Souder's view that a change in perspective is key. Those memorial ceremonies don't happen on Liberation Day. They happen throughout the month. There's so many things that could happen that month whereon are your own personal time. It doesn't have to be a giant like, oh, it's Liberation Month. We should actually, if you want to see how it's done, check out Pride Month. We can have a Pride Month, but we can't have a Liberation Month. That sounds kind of queer to me, Jose. It could simply be talking to your grandparents, talking to a relative, watching maybe a documentary if you want to, just extending your understanding both academically and emotionally, Camacho said. Camacho hopes that taking more time to sit with the history behind the day will lead more people to consider some difficult questions that spur them to action.
They're really not that difficult.
No. Camacho and other members of Independent Guahan have handed out flyers at past Liberation Day parades with hopes from those who fought, survived, and inherited the tragedies of war to invite people toward reflection. When you look back at just the idea of the war and liberation, not just in this month but throughout the year, it becomes sadder. You think of why did it take so long to do war claims? Well, actually, it didn't take long at all. The Meritorious Claims Act came along in 1946. But I'll bet you dollars to donuts that Annie Faye Camacho doesn't know anything about the Meritorious Claims Act. How come we don't have self-determination? What a dumb question. How come we don't have self-determination? How come we celebrate the U.S. liberating us, but why does the U.S. still hold so much power over us when liberation means to set free? This kid's a real Phi Beta Kappa. There's just so much about the day that goes beyond the day, Camacho said. That level of reflection and focus is what Souder, Flores, and Camacho hope our community engages in the midst of a day off and the return of a beloved annual event. Most people just check out and they celebrate. They have a drink and good food and they enjoy each other. This is a horrible thing to do. Yeah.
So much contempt in this article.
Really. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the whole point, Sauter said. We're celebrating our survival. We're celebrating resiliency. We're celebrating the Marines who came and liberated the Chamorros from the brutality of occupation. Penultimate paragraph till she finally gets to that. Yeah. Yes, we are celebrating those things. Now, here's the finale. But there's unfinished business because Chamorros are not free. Chamorros are not liberated. Chamorros are still a colony, and the Chamorro people are still colonized. So let me...
Wait, what?
Just let me reflect on that last paragraph for a second here. Chamorros are not free. You know, they have to wear these badges that look like yellow lottie stones wherever they go on the island, and they have these tattoos on a number tattoo. Chamorros are not free. And of course, some Chamorros voluntarily moved to the mainland. I guess they're not free either. They're still colonized people. This is just such...
It's insulting and demeaning.
It is.
To hear this.
Yes.
To be told that you're not.
Yeah.
Not to say, I feel like I'm not free. You are not free.
Chamorros are not free. We are still a colony. So let me give you another way of looking at this, Laura. If you could blunt your fangs for a moment. Guam is a small island in the Western Pacific. Like all small islands in the Western Pacific, other powers landed on their shores and colonized them over the years. Guam was no exception. Guam was colonized by Spain for over 400 years. A little over 100 years ago, the United States took this island away from Spain. By any objective comparison, the real life of this island began when the Americans took over. Now, they ran it under a military dictatorship until 1950. They fought a war to take it away from the Japanese, and as I keep telling you, 1,528 Marines lost their lives in that war. Many of them were just common folks. The kid down the street, the 18-year-old kid that was a good basketball player in high school, the 21-year-old guy that just got married, etc. Just plain folks, and they came and died on this island to take it away from the Japanese. After that, the Organic Act was passed. So how about this? The history of Guam is not a whole lot different from the history of almost every other in the island in the Pacific Ocean, except for one thing. It's American. And because of that, it's the most prosperous, freest island in this whole part of the world. So free that, on Liberation Day, I suspect that Francis Gaywood is going to be swearing in a new group of citizens. People are literally dying to get into this country.
It sounds like that teenager that complains about his life at home until it's time to move out.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, what now?
Yeah. No more allowance?
Right.
Yeah, so look at it this way. You say that Chamorros are not free. So perhaps this is the thought process. There's an island in the Western Pacific. The American flag flies there. It's very important to our defense. It's part of the defense of the United States of America. It's too small, and there aren't enough people there for Guam to become a state. So what we have done is we have extended all of the benefits of American freedom to that island, even though it's not a state. They get to keep their income tax. The military pays them income tax. They have a democratic form of government. They've got an independent judiciary. They've got a straight shot to the United States Supreme Court. They have almost everything that they would have if they were a state, which they can never become. But in spite of that, and a free system, a free existence, because there's a rule of law there. Not only the local justice system, but a federal court, a United States attorney, etc., to make sure that the rule of law is available to everyone. So they're really happy about it, except a few folks who have an axe to grind, who obviously want Guam to be independent of the United States, and they come up with stuff like this. But there's unfinished business, because Chamorros are not free. I got to repeat that. Chamorros are not free. Chamorros are not liberated. Chamorros are still a colony. I think Guam's the colony, not Chamorros.
I've challenged I've asked these questions of these people all the time, and I know other people have as well. What is the alternative? And don't give me some theoretical thing. Mm-hmm. Tell us what the alternative is. Because for me, I don't want to give up my freedoms that I have and the protection for some sort of self-centered, feel-good piece of I really don't get what they're looking for.
Yeah.
I think they're just looking for a situation to complain about.
Sometimes you run into people who would much rather bitch than be satisfied.
Because I can guarantee you none of the people in this article is shackled by anything.
No.
Not by poverty, not by the mind, because they're free to speak and talk about these things. The only thing that they're talking about is some sort of utopia that they can't wrestle in their head, doesn't exist.
Or even articulate.
Exactly, can't even articulate.
Yeah. Okay, it's time for the seventh inning stretch, and when I come out of Wrigley Field, I got R. James, a guy that wants to make his mark again, and R. Keith. I got a full card here.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Here we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago. That means I've only got 2 more innings, and this game is over. And let's see, stepping into the batter's box is none other than R. James. Take a swing, R. James.
Good afternoon, Bob. I am so glad that you explained some of those things that you explained, and I'm going to toss a couple of things on top of it for people to think about. One of them is one that Jose just mentioned. First of all, these people that are attempting to continue to keep shoveling the same stuff that I used to shovel out of my grandfather's barn over and over again are either brainwashed or brainwashers. And I'm going to lean towards the latter because they seem to be people that have mouthpieces that can continue to spew this stuff. Number 2, like Jose mentioned, they always talk about being completely and totally free because they're talking about we're not free. The people of Guam are not free. Okay, so what are those alternatives? Okay, well, here's something that everybody in the international listening community needs to think about when they hear these people spewing this tripe all over the place over and over again, attempting to try to, I guess, win someone's heart and mind to come over to their side. Let's just say that if tomorrow the United States government allowed a free, open vote to let every person on Guam vote whether they wanted to remain aligned with the United States or whether they wanted to be, quote unquote, independent. If the vote was to be independent and no longer be aligned with the United States, what do these people think would happen? And I'm going to throw a few things out there that would happen. We would lose pretty much every penny that comes to this island through the military, through businesses that are owned, run, operated, that have shareholders in the United States. Every bank on this island that has an FSLIC would immediately lose that. And I can tell you, businesses would lock, stock, and barrel start pulling out. Okay? Things would change so drastically and so quick, and it would become a quagmire literally within 30 days of that happening. Okay? That's one thing that people need to think about when they talk about not being free and seeking independence, but they don't really offer anything to think about or any viable ways to make that happen and make it sustainable, because there is no way to make it sustainable. They're just not telling anybody that. They just want to complain and whine and gripe. Okay? The other thing that everybody needs to think about is when they start talking about history, and you mentioned this, and that the true colonizers are not the United States. The true colonizers were, of course, predominantly the Spanish for over 400 years, but then also to a lesser extent the Germans, and then to a somewhat more extent the Japanese. The United States didn't colonize anything out here. That was already done, hundreds of years before the United States had to come out here and try to defend it. All right? So everybody needs to get their head screwed on straight and get a little bit of a reality check going, because these people are either just sadly misguided and don't have enough common sense to walk across the street to get out of the rain, as my great-grandmother used to say, or they're just outright liars with a narrative. And I think they're just outright liars with a narrative, but that's my opinion. The other thing that they need to remember is that, and I'm going to go one step farther, every American, and even some people that fought in World War II that weren't Americans, but fought on the side of America and the Allies, that's what Liberation Day is about. It's to remember those who paid the ultimate price so that everyone could have the democracy and rule of law. And, hey, if there's enough votes out there for anyone to go and vote and try to get the United States to completely cut ties with Guam and be independent, hey, if that was to ever happen, you would have the right to do that. But free people have those rights. And they keep telling everybody that they're not free. Okay, well, everybody in Guam is so colonized and so not free that they do have the right to move anywhere in the world that they want to. And they have the right to do that because there are still a lot of countries that if you have a blue passport, that actually earns you brownie points. Okay? Guam is one of the freest of any of the places in the Western Pacific. Touched on that. But if there's anybody here that really feels like they're mistreated and they really feel like, there's some northern islands up from Saipan that have got almost no population on them. You're so not free here in Guam that, You can turn in your passport and you can leave at any time if you don't like it. But in other countries, you try to turn in your passport and tell them you don't want to be Russian anymore. See how that works out for you. Okay? I just, they write these articles and it's nothing but drivel. And Bob, I take my hat off to you because you do it in such a politically correct manner. And I don't know if I could honestly sit down and I have almost a hard time making a phone call to let you know the way I feel, little less actually sit down and scanning through all of this tripe to do it the way you do it. So I take my hat off to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, R. James. Always a pleasure to talk to you. We enjoy your contributions. Thank you, sir. I just had somebody drop off. Who was that?
That was our Keith.
Yeah.
Talking to James, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to the caller who wants to make a mark, and then let's hope that, maybe that's our Keith calling back. Good afternoon, Mark.
Hey, Uncle Bob. So going back to pre-1950, wasn't there a Guam delegation that was voted in by the voters on Guam that was Juan Pat and B.J. Bradallo and somebody else that went to Washington, D.C. and asked for something that ended up being the Organic Act?
Well, before the war, B.J. Bradallo and F.B. Leon Guerrero went to Washington. The school kids took up a collection of pennies to fund them to go back to ask for an Organic Act and citizenship. After the war, Juan Pat and I think it was F.B. Leon Guerrero again went back and again asked for the Organic Act and citizenship. So if you look at the history of the times, if you want to beat this self-determination drum, it seems to me that we exercised self-determination between the end of the war and the beginning of the Organic Act. Yeah.
That's kind of the way the history reminds me about it. And thanks for refreshing my memory on exactly who went and what was done.
But of course, if you're a separatist, one of your first tasks is to rewrite history and debunk the predecessor. I'm wondering how long it'll be before the separatists turn on some of the older fellows like B.J. Bradallo and F.B. Leon Guerrero, like they're doing in the United States now, telling us our founding fathers, where we really should just wipe them from our memories. I wonder when that's going to happen here.
Just because they did something that was acceptable at the time.
Yeah.
So everything that and if they actually had this, they didn't really have a referendum, but these people were voted into office. So, I mean, it's pretty much the people's will that they were voted into the office, and they did what they did, and we are where we are now.
Exactly. You got it, Keith.
All right, well, take care.
Thanks for calling. Okay,
that was Mark you're talking to.
Well, let's see. I hung up on Mark?
On Keith.
There
he is.
Yeah, I got mixed up here. The calls came in out of order. Okay, line one. This is
Keith.
Our Keith. Good afternoon.
Who's on first?
Yeah, let's play Who's on First, telephone tag, whatever, huh?
You literally took that out of my head. Stop it, Jose.
Okay.
Apparently, these writers, one of them, whoever the lady was, is she really so stupid to believe that Guam could function? And it's not a shot on Guam, but you indicated it very clearly. It's a small island. Could function economically in the 21st century independent and still have the people maintain the standard of living that they currently have? Does she honestly believe that?
I saw something on TV the other night, one of those Wendover productions, and the per capita income on Guam is about $36,000. Is there a typhoon? Okay. Is there a typhoon in your neighborhood?
Oh, there we go. Is that better?
Yeah. Yeah, the per capita income on Guam is around $36,000. The per capita income in the Northern Marianas is $15,000. And I wonder what it is in places like the FSM and the Marshalls, et cetera. So if we were independent, we would very quickly ratchet down to having an economy like that. Nothing like what we have right now.
Is that why all sorts of folks from FSM, from Chuk, from Marshalls come here to work? Is because this is such a terrible place?
Even Chinese who are paroled into the Northern Marianas grab boats and sail down here in small boats because there's more economic opportunity here than there is there.
The second individual, I apologize, I did not catch names, who said something or maybe it was the lady again.
Yeah.
Who said something to the effect of, we need to take time during the Liberation Day festivities to sit down and ask ourselves some difficult questions. Well, I got a difficult question for her. Let's take the budget of the island, the governmental budget of the island of Guam. Then let's remove all our federal grants, goodies, all the federal largesse that comes in. Then let's remove all the military spending. And what does she think would be left? Lastly, you ever notice how these folks, they love writing op-eds from their ivory towers, formerly hallowed halls of academia, but they never participate in debates. Why is that?
And they never call tall tales.
I mean, I, for one, would pay serious money to get a front row seat in a debate between, any cognitive adult and these people. That would be just fun to watch.
Yeah.
If they really are, intent on their beliefs and they really do believe they're right, hey, let's have a debate.
Yeah, well, I hear what you're saying, Keith. But that lady's name was Annie Faye Camacho. She's the co-chair of Independent Guahan Media and Solidarity Committee.
Uh-huh.
Well, good talk.
Take it easy, Bob.
Take it easy. I got to see what R. Carl's got on his mind here. And next we go to the most dangerous man in the room, R. Carl. Good afternoon, R. Carl. Tell me more.
Hey, Bob, sorry if it's a little noisy. My neighbor a few houses down is water blasting, so I don't know how it's coming through on your end. But, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about my mom's generation, the occupation generation, World War II generation. She and her 9 siblings were here. After the war, they made a choice as to which direction they wanted to go. They had a taste of being, not really super closely connected to America, and what they wanted to do was become closer and have more defense in case there was another country that wanted to invade. And the problem is not that we didn't, my parents, my uncles and aunties, my mom did not choose a political status. They did. The problem is the people in this movement to separate from America just don't like what they chose, and they're not in power. I just want to mention, too, about, there's a lot of talk about sovereignty. We already have the most important sovereignty there is. That's personal sovereignty. I'd like to ask you a question, and Jose, what do you call someone who has no freedom of speech, religion, the press, peaceful assembly, petitioning the government, private property, etc. What do you call that person?
A North Korean.
Yeah, that is true. But I like to call them a slave, and I believe there's resistance. And we've talked about this before about some members of this group studying the Italian Marxist Antonio Gramsci, his most famous work, his prison notebooks, and I didn't realize it at the time, but over time I've come to realize that Gramsci is probably the third most important Marxist in world history, based on the effect he's had on growing the movement. And anytime you have people studying these Marxist principles, and I'm sure some of them are neo-Marxist, they would classify themselves as that. Anytime you have that, the ultimate objective is always the same, and that is socialism. And by that I don't mean socialism Sweden. That Sweden and Norway and Denmark, those are not socialist countries. They're over 90% private ownership. What they want is power, political power, and control. And that is why I believe there's such resistance to the simple act of writing our own constitution, like the 50 states have done, because they want to wipe clean the slate, cut our protections from the Constitution and from the name of the document slips my mind, the Organic Act. Cut all ties to that and write a new constitution in which there would be concentration of power. And really, it doesn't matter what they call this form of government.
Hey, Carl?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear the music. It's time for me to pack up and head for Churchill Downs.
Okay, Bob. Well, thank you for allowing me to chime in a bit.
Good to talk to you.
See you tomorrow.
All right, after Churchill Downs, I got Johnny Utah and another Joe, but another Joe's already ridden on the merry-go-round once, so we're going to go from Churchill Downs, Kentucky, to straight to Salt Lake City, Utah.
Joyce Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Darryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Candid, The Point, and the Guam Daily Post are proud to present another Platform 2022 debate. Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and Lieutenant Governor candidate Sabrina Salas Matanani. Phil Leon Guerrero and Montesilva Tyron will present topics and issues of concern to every Guamanian. July 20th at 6 p.m. everywhere. Broadcast, simulcast, and webcast on Facebook, Candid News, and on the air at 93.3 FM and on KGTF. Platform 2022 from Candid, the Guam Daily Post, and 93.3 The Point.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. I climb on the Tall Tales executive jet and jet straight to Salt Lake City, where I'm greeted by none other than Johnny Utah. Johnny, you want to help me carry my suitcase here?
Yes, absolutely. So while we're on the topic of separation, I got a secret to tell you. I have actually had communication with Michael Bavacqua.
Okay.
I had found some petroglyphs in a place called 9 Mile Canyon here in Utah that were resemblance of latte stones, and I actually sent them to him, and we communicated. But I had communication with him before. He does appreciate. I guess he likes intellectual communication. So at any rate, I'm very critical, though, of his philosophy of separation. And I presented with him some straightforward questions as to what is it that you want to gain? What is it that you want from separation, from becoming independent, from getting away from the United States and losing this so-called title of colonization? And, you know, his answer to me was, I'm not that person. I just want to present to the people the opportunity to have the chance to do this. I'm not worried about what happens afterwards. That's not up to me. So he's a Marxist. All he's doing is introducing chaos and anarchy, because anybody that is going to yell fire in a movie theater is not representing freedom of speech. You know, what he's doing is yelling fire in a movie theater. He's wanting to set the place on fire, but he's not willing to put the fire out. He's not concerned about what happens to Guam after that. And, you know, I really wish I had kept those messages, because that's the key thing that I think people need to be aware of, is that these separatists have no concern for you, really. All they want to do is put out there the ideology and present it to the people of Guam or all of the islands, including, you know, American Samoa's going through the same thing, that you can be separate and be free. But they don't want you to know about all the consequences of what could happen beyond that. And they're not concerned with that. You know, I mean, he's not concerned with it. It's not his problem. And I think that sums it up. I think that pretty much says everything about their ideology and what they're trying to do. It's a self-destructive behavior.
Well, if you're an anarchist, if you're a Marxist, you have to start out by destroying what's there before you can build what you really want after it's gone.
Right. And, well, you know, beyond that, they don't even have that plan. He's not even at that point of having a plan for what or how to develop Guam. I mean, does he plan on letting the Chinese come in and take over? Which country, which oligarch, you know, which dictator are they going to invite in? Russia's not too far away.
It's close by. Good points, Johnny. Thank you very much for sharing that experience with us.
And I tried to tell him to call you. In fact, I think I even messaged Jose once about it. I told Jose, I said, hey, I think Michael Vivacqua is going to be calling in. And I'm sure he remembers that. And you know, he did. And his response was that, oh, he's just wasting his time, his precious time on the air. I said, no, he's not. I said, listen to his show. He's really presenting things in an analytical, I'm talking about you, in an analytical and logical method. What you're doing is a subjective anarchist perspective. You have no end to your means. Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does, yeah. And I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Johnny.
Yes, sir. All right, God bless you guys. Good night.
Good night. And I'm going to go to another Joe. We could just barely squeeze you in here at the end of the show. Go for it.
We're talking about what is the meaning of the Liberation Day Parade, I think that's what the conversation was about.
Yes, yeah.
And so thinking back to my youth, my earliest years, just starting to walk and talk, I remember scrambling through crowds. I remember I think one of the years Ben Bloss was riding a horse and throwing out, I don't know, he or someone was throwing out candy in the parade, and those little candy coins and stuff. And, pretty impressive stuff for a little kid. And then climbing on top of roofs, and it's a gathering of the people celebrating this event, which was they're surviving an occupation from Imperial Japan in the military. And there was a point where I got kind of tired of hearing the war stories. I'll tell you, Uncle Bob, I miss a lot of those elders telling the war stories. I miss them so much. But anyway, So it's something that they celebrated their common experience, and of course acknowledging they were liberated by the U.S. military, the Marines and the Navy and everybody else put together. So this is what the focus was, and just being there for family. Now what you got here is people who see some sort of an opening, a vacuum, so to speak, because all our elders, most of them have passed, have gone. So there's this sense of need of a central authority, a family figure type. It just seems as though they're attempting to fill that in some way, using their studies at UOG as a central point and making themselves the elders or the authorities, so to speak. And it just doesn't sit well with a lot of people, you know. And so the sense of the meaning of the parade has changed. It's evolved into something that we don't really identify with as much from, you know, up from the earliest years up to the 70s, early 80s. What do you think, Bob? Does that sound right?
I think you got it. I think you got it, another Joe. Good analysis.
So I don't know how much time there is before you have to say, you know, the theme of
how much time we got? Yeah, there it is.
Okay, come on, thanks. I'll hear you tomorrow.
All right, let's go, Brandon. See you tomorrow.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The White House says there's no recession coming. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News, with the latest Fox News poll showing 84% of the people asked saying the economy is fair or worse. The White House insisting we are not on the verge of a recession.
Based on consumer spending, based on payroll employment, based on where the unemployment rate is, I think we can confidently say that these numbers that we're posting are very much inconsistent with a recessionary call.
That's White House economic advisor Jared Bernstein, who says the president wants Congress to pass a slimmed-down version of his Build Back Better spending plan, which faltered earlier in the year. He also pointed to falling gas prices, which are down another 2.5 cents since yesterday, according to the AAA, which says the average price per gallon is now just below $4.50. Customs and Border Protection arrested 200,000 migrants trying to cross the southern border illegally last month. That's the most ever recorded in the month of June. The number is actually down 14% from the nearly 241,000 arrests in May. That was the highest number ever recorded in any month. Jury selection has begun in the trial of former Trump White House political advisor Steve Bannon.
He faces 2 counts of contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with a House January 6 committee subpoena. Each charge carries a possible sentence of 30 days to 1 year in prison. Prosecutors say they will lay out their case in about a day. Bannon is one of 4 former Trump officials held in contempt of Congress, but only 2 have been indicted by the Justice Department.
Fox's Lauren Blanchard, 22 potential jurors have been selected. That list will be pared down to 12 jurors and 2 alternates. Testimony has begun in the penalty phase of the Nicholas Cruz trial. A jury must decide if he is to be executed for killing 17 people at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida on Valentine's Day in 2018. America is listening to Fox News.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts ad-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Trey Gowdy, the Fox News Rundown, Will Kane, Brian Kilmeade, and so much more. Go to foxnewspodcasts.com for all the details. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. New from the Fox News Podcasts Network, Dana Perino, co-host of the 5 and America's Newsroom on Fox News Channel, returns to the world of audio with a new limited-time podcast, Everything Will Be Okay with Dana Perino. Building off the success of her best-selling book of the same name, Dana provides an unequaled brand of advice built on real-life experience and interviews experts and individuals that make a difference in the lives of others. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's another primary Tuesday.
In Maryland, the Republican primary for governor is a fight between outgoing Republican Governor Larry Hogan's pick, his own Labor Secretary Kelly Schultz, and former President Trump's pick, state lawmaker Dan Cox, who has since deleted tweets about the 2020 election being stolen. Even though Democrats far outnumber Republicans in the state, Hogan has served 2 terms. The Democratic Governors Association has spent more than $1 million highlighting Cox, as they've done in other races around the country, spending money on ads for the Trump-endorsed candidate. On the Democratic side, former DNC chair and President Obama Labor Secretary Tom Perez is facing author, veteran, and nonprofit executive Wes Moore, who's backed by Oprah Winfrey. State Comptroller Peter Franchot is also in the race. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
The Pentagon says it has reached a handshake deal with Lockheed Martin to build 375 F-35 fighter jets to be delivered over the next 3 years. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has expanded his government shakeup, suspending another 28 government officials on Monday. He fired the chief of his security service and the country's top prosecutor on Sunday, saying their agencies had harbored collaborators and traitors. Ukraine's First Lady continues her trip to Washington today to meet with her American counterparts.
The wife of Ukraine's President Zelensky, Olena Zelenska, is on a high-profile tour of Washington. She met with Secretary of State Antony Blinken Monday. State Department spokesman Ned Price.
He ultimately reiterated that we remain committed to helping the people of Ukraine recover, to helping them rebuild.
Price also said Ukraine's First Lady has a tremendous mental health initiative for citizens affected by the war. Today, Zelenska meets with First Lady Jill Biden at the White House, where the two are expected to hold a bilateral meeting. Wednesday, she gives a speech to lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
Fox's Jill Nato.